Right before I started in law enforcement, I had a conversation with the chief deputy, and he basically gave me all of the negative of being in law enforcement, and one of them was the fact that you're not going to be able to eat good, and you're probably going to have to eat a lot of gas station meals, and the the likelihood that this decreases your life expectancy. Just working law enforcement, you know, your life expectancy is shorter. And I remember that being a big thing for me when he told me that there's going to be times where you're going to have to eat gas station meals, and you don't get to eat healthy all the time. And I thought, okay, that could be a big issue for me, but at the same time, I know if I don't eat a meal, I'm going to be okay. So if there's something that isn't good, I can just not eat and I'll be okay. And what I realized in this and during that conversation, as I was working in corrections, I was working in a prison in that moment or in that time, is that there are so many correction officers, law enforcement, and other first responders that they don't have any standards of operating procedures. We have policies within departments. These are the standards. These are the policies. These are your expectations. And so many of us don't have your own standards. And this becomes a problem because when you don't have a standard that you live by, you start to live your life based on other people's thoughts, opinions, and standards. And chances are those are not going to line up with what your standards are or what you want your standards to be. So when I got into law enforcement, I kind of had already gone down this path where working in the prison, first and foremost, when it came to meals, I'm a trier. I like to try different things. So I tried a lot of the meals that were prepared in the prison, but there were some things I just wouldn't eat because what the hell was that? I don't know. I can't tell what that is. I'm not going to eat that, but I tried things. And basically, after trying the meals, I would bring my own food in. And realistically, I brought my own food in most of the time. And if there was something that I hadn't tried, I would try it and, just form an opinion on whether, okay, that's edible or not edible or whatever. But I still had my own food. I still brought my own food to eat, and I still had my own standards of this is acceptable to my body, to my values, and to my standard. And going from the prison into law enforcement, I had to make a choice again. Was I going to maintain my standards, or was I going to lower my standards and form my values and beliefs and standards based on what everyone else was doing? And that is eating, gas station food, processed food. And there's days where I've done that, and part of it is, I want to try that. But for the majority, I have a standard. We have to have standards, and for me, if it's not Whole Foods, I probably don't want it because it has no value to me. If I can't see where it came from, I don't really want that. I don't want processed foods. And this is just one of my standards of how I operate and how I choose to live and how I choose to, go through life in terms of, this is what I value. This is what I believe. And I see so many people in law enforcement, in corrections, first responders that they don't have this. And so they just simply do what everyone else is doing. And part of it is they don't have their own standards. They don't have their own standard operating procedures within themselves. They don't live by a personal code. And part of it is if they had a standard, if they had a personal code at one point, they weren't willing to stand up for it, to speak it, to live it. So they lie to themselves and just form to what everyone else is doing. So the question is, what is your standard? What are you willing to live by? What are you willing to die by? What are your values? And are you going to lower your standards to everyone else around you just because that's what they're doing? Or are you going to stand and live up to your own standards, live up to your own values and your own beliefs? You know, there's lots of times where you get invited out to restaurants. You know, we go while we're working, just, hey, we're going to go eat at this restaurant. Okay. I already ate, or I brought food I'll eat later, or I just don't want to eat at a restaurant. I don't want to eat whatever food is there because I know the quality isn't up to my standards. I'll come hang out. I'll sit and have a cup of water and just, do the conversation and bond, but I'm not eating the food because that is my standard. That is just where my value is and where my beliefs are. And I'm not saying I'm right, not saying I'm wrong. You have to have your own standards. You have to have your own values, your own beliefs. But what are they? Do you have your own standards? Do you have your own beliefs? Are you willing to say, no, like, I'm okay with you doing that. You do you, but I'm going to do me. And this is where a lot of men in law enforcement, in corrections, first responders, we struggle because we see everyone else doing whatever it is they're doing, eating whatever it is they're eating. There's always sugars, there's always sweets, there's always something to munch on. And it's just right there in front of us, so it's easy, we just grab it. But what's your standard? Is it adding value to you? Does it align with your values? Does it align with your beliefs? It's something we've got to think of, something we have to consider. Because if we don't have our own standards, again, we just fall to the standards of others. And as first responders, this should not be the case. I mean, we should have the highest standards, the highest values, the highest moral beliefs. But is this the case? I can't tell you yes or no. I can't tell you what to do. I'm just simply asking you the question. What are your standards? What are you willing to stand up for? And what are you willing to live for and stand by? How are you willing to operate your life? And are you willing to say no if it doesn't align with those standards? Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that fall and just cater to what everyone else is doing. And I get it. I've been there too. There's been times where, it was just simple. It was there. So I ate it. Or I did what others were doing. Simply because I didn't know any better. Wasn't willing to stand up for what I believed in that moment. And every time I do that, every time I don't stand up for what I believe and stand for my standards, I die a little bit inside. And it takes effort to get that back, to reform and to just get back to, okay, this is my standard. Yes, I chose that. Yes, I did that. That's not me. That's not what I want. So What are your standards? Are you willing to stand up for your standards and to live in a way that you're raising the standard? As a man, as a first responder, we're called to serve, we're called to lead, we're called to be the standard and to raise that standard for your family, for your community. Are you willing to be the standard and to raise the standard? God bless.